Hi, welcome to the Gemara on Lamed Amud Aleph. We're starting about 10 lines up from the bottom. V'shlishit para duma v'chulei. So starting with a new quote from the Mishnah about the third of the Arba Parshiot weeks. You read Parshat Para. Tanu Rabbanan Ezo hi Shabbat Shlishit, which is the third Shabbat. Kol shesmucha lepurim ma'achareha. The Shabbat which is literally close to Purim and after it. So meaning the Shabbat that comes right after Purim. Itzmar, we have an Amoraic statement. Amar Shabbat hasmucha Rosh Chodesh Nisan. The Shabbat that is close to Rosh Chodesh Nisan, meaning the Shabbat that comes right before Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Velo plige, and these two opinions don't actually disagree, meaning you can have the Shabbat that's after Purim and also the Shabbat that's before Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Ha de'ikla Rosh Chodesh Nisan b'Shabbat. This is when Rosh Chodesh Nisan falls out on Shabbat. Ha de'ikla be'emtza Shabbat b'Revi'it. And this is when it falls out in the middle of Shabbat. Sorry, b'Revi'it is the next quote. This is when it falls out in the middle of the week. So in other words, when Rosh Chodesh Nisan falls out on Shabbat, so then you're going to read HaChodesh, that Shabbat. So then you can read, Parshat Parah the week before. So it's the Shabbat HaSmucha Rosh Chodesh. That's Rabbi Chama's opinion. You're reading it the Shabbat before Rosh Chodesh. And if it falls out in the middle of the week, right, Hadzi Ikla Be'emtza Shabbat. So if Rosh Chodesh Nisan is falling out in the middle of the week, so then you can read Parshat HaChodesh right before Rosh Chodesh. And so Parshat Parah takes place the week before that, which is the Shabbat after Purim. So it depends whether each of these opinions can be reflected depending on when Rosh Chodesh Nisan falls out. Okay. Moving on to the next part of the Mishnah, B'Revi'it HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem. On the fourth week of the Arba Parshiot weeks, or in the fourth place, we read HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem. Tana Rabbanan. So we have a Breita. Rosh Chodesh Adar Shechaliyot b'Shabbat. Korin ki tisa umavtirin b'Yehoyada. We've seen this idea before. When Rosh Chodesh Adar falls out on Shabbat, you read ki tisa, meaning that's Parshat Shkalim. That's the special reading for Rosh Chodesh Adar on Shabbat. And the maftir is Yehoyada, which we've already seen is a segment that's about giving Shkalim. Also about donating shkalim for sacrifices. The Ezo hi Shabbat Rishona, and what counts as this first Shabbat for purposes of reading the Arba Parshiot. Kol shechal Rosh Chodesh Adar liot b'tocha, va'afilu be'erev Shabbat. Any week where Rosh Chodesh Adar falls out during it, even if it falls out on Friday. So we've discussed that before. Anytime during the week, anytime it falls out during that week. Okay. B'shniya Zachor, on the second space, the second slot is Zachor, umaftirin pakadati. And we read the maftir from Shmuel Aleph of pakadati, which is talks about Shaul's war with Amalek. So you can see how it's directly relevant to Parshat Zachor. This is also part of the Breita. The Ezo hi Shabbat Shniya, and what counts as the second week? Again, we've cited this before. Kol shechal Purim liyot b'tocha va'afilu be'erev Shabbat. It's any time that Purim falls out during that week, during the preceding week, even if Purim falls out on Erev Shabbat, falls out on Friday. B'shlishit para aduma. In the third slot, we read para aduma. Umaftirin v'zarakti aleichem. And the maftir that we read is from Yechezkel, sprinkling on you. So it's about purification. It's Yechezkel's discussion of purification in Yemot HaMashiach. So again, you can see how that matches with Para Aduma. Ve'ezo hi Shabbat Shlishit, and what counts as the third week? Kol shesmucha lepurim achareha. This we just discussed, right? Where Purim comes immediately following Purim. It is close to Purim and after it. B'Revi'it HaChodesh Hazeh, in the fourth slot you read HaChodesh Hazeh, Umaftirin, Yechezkel, Koamar Hashem, or Koamar Elohim. So in the fourth slot you read from Yechezkel, and this is also like a Chodesh shout out. It's God speaking in the first day of the first month, Barishon Be'echad LeChodesh. So Koamar Hashem Barishon Be'echad LeChodesh. This is all still part of the Breita. Oops. Okay, turning the page. Ve'ezuhi Shabbat Revi'i. So what counts as the fourth Shabbat for these purposes? Kol Shachal Rosh Chodesh Nisan Lio Pitocha Ve'afil Be'erev Shabbat. Any week where Rosh Chodesh Nisan falls out during it, even if it falls on Erev Shabbat. So even when Rosh Chodesh Nisan falls on Friday, that still counts as that week. Okay. B'chamishit chozrin l'kesidran v'chulei. Finishing up the Mishnah, the preceding Mishnah. This is also read because this is the end of the Breita. So on in the fifth week, you go back to the regular order. L'seder mai. To what order do you go back? Okay, what does that mean that the regular order was interrupted, and what order do we go back to? Rabbi Ami Amar l'seder parshiot, l'seder parshiot hu chozer. Rabbi Yirmiyah Amar l'seder haftarot hu chozer. So we've seen this before. Rabbi Ami says that you're going back to the order of parshiot, meaning you had stopped reading the regular weekly parshiot, right? You were no longer reading in the normal order. You had totally switched to only the special portions, and now you're going back to our regularly scheduled Torah reading. And Rabbi Yirmiyah says the Seder Parshiot Haftarot Chozer. It's just the only thing that was disrupted was the maftir, so we're going back to our regular maftirs. Amar Abaye Kivatei Rabbi Ami Mistabra. Abaye says, that it makes sense to hold like Rabbi Ami Titznan, because we learned in a Mishnah L'chol Mafsikin L'Roshei Chodeshim L'Chanukah U'Lepurim L'Taniyot U'Mamadot. We learned that you stop for all of these things, right? You interrupt reading for all these things, for Rosh Chodesh, for Chanukah, for Purim, for fast days, for Ma'amadot, which we talked about as special prayer services, and Yom HaKippurim, and also for Yom Kippur. So the Gemara has to explain why this is a defense of Rabbi Ami. Bishlam Alaman Damar L'Seder Parshiot Hu Chozer. So this makes sense according to Rabbi Ami, the one who says that we go back to the normal Seder Parshiot. Hainu Di'ika Parsha B'chol. That's why you could say that there is a Parsha even on a weekday. In other words, the idea that Purim interrupts our regularly scheduled reading, or Ma'amadot interrupts our regular scheduled reading, or fast days interrupt our regular scheduled readings, those are not things that can happen on Shabbat. Those can only happen on weekdays. So if those things can be said to interrupt the regular reading, we must be talking about the regular parshiot, because we have regular parshiot on weekdays, but we don't have maftir on weekdays. Right? For the one who says that it's Seder Haftarot you go back to, right? Is there a Haftarah on a weekday? Meaning there is not a Haftarah on a weekday, so you can't say that the regular reading was interrupted on a weekday if what you mean is that you interrupted the maftir. V'idach, and what about the other guy? Meaning, how would Rabbi Yirmiyah defend himself? Hakadita, the Hakadita. So literally, this is as it is, and this is as it is. Meaning the piece about, Chozer L'Kesidran, going back to its order, we sort of keep that on its own, and then the piece about interrupting is also on its own. So basically, it's not the case that you have to say that going back to the regular order means that it was totally, that there was an order there to disturb, right? So since you can just read the Arba Parshiot as a maftir, it's only the order of the maftirs that has to be disturbed. But when you talk about a regular weekday Torah reading. So obviously that's not interrupted. But the only way to accommodate a reading there is to interrupt it. So you can sort of keep the two clauses separate, where you could say that mafsikin applies, in some ways to Hanukkah and in different ways to Mamadot, and it doesn't have to apply the same way to all of the clauses in that sentence. Ubetaniot lama li hafsaka, and for fast days, why do I need an interruption? So again, challenging Rabbi Yirmiya's view, right? Challenging the idea that what we're doing is interrupting the maftir, right? If all we're doing is interrupting the maftir, so why do we need to list fast days? Why would we need any interruption of the Torah reading on a fast day? Likra mitzafra b'inyan diyoma, uvemincha b'ta'anita. In the morning we could read the regular Torah reading, and in the afternoon we could read, like for mincha, we could read the special reading for a fast day. Misayele Rav Huna, Te'amar Rav Huna. So this supports the position of Rav Huna, who said, Mitzafra kinufia, that in the morning we gather. In the morning of a fast day, we have a gathering. What people do on a fast day, apparently, is in the morning everyone gathers together to talk about what they've done wrong and talk about repentance. So then, according to Rashi, there'd be no time to read from the Torah at all on that day. So the regular Torah reading isn't like you don't substitute in a different Torah reading. You just don't have Torah reading at all that day. So this position would support that idea. Okay. Now the Gemara has a different question. Hechiyav dinan, what do we do on a fast day? That's the implicit question here. Like, what is it that we do on fast days? Again, these are, probably not just designated fast days, but specially declared fast days that people have when they think there's a need for repentance. So, mitzafra l'palga diyoma manyanim b'milei tamata. From the morning until midway through the day, people looked carefully at the matters of the city, or the kind of dealings of the city, like to see what needed to be improved. Mipalga diyoma lepanya riva diyoma kara umaftire. And from halfway through the day till towards evening, like another quarter of the way through, right, till there's only a quarter of the day left, so I guess from noon until like mid-afternoon, they read from the Torah and then read a haftarah. That's when like the service part takes place. Veriva diyoma ba'urachme. And then starting from mid-afternoon till the end, they ask for mercy. They daven, basically. Shnei amar, as it says in Nehemiah, v'ikru b'sefer Torah Hashem Eloheim. This is the pasuk. So saying they read, and then actually the continuation of the pasuk talks about. Oh, actually, it goes on here. Revi'it hayom mitvadim mishtachavim. So the continuation is they would use that last fourth of the day to confess and bow down. So this is our model for the idea that you should daven and ask for mercy during the last quarter of the day on a fast day from mid-afternoon until it gets dark. V'ipuchana, and I will reverse it, meaning maybe I can say that, because this just says a quarter of the day, maybe when it says we ask for mercy for a quarter of the day, maybe it's not the last quarter of the day, maybe you're actually supposed to daven during the first quarter of the day. Lo sagataytach, don't think this. Tichtiv, because we have another pasuk in Ezra, ve'elayas hu kol chered b'divrei elokei Yisrael, ma'al hagolah, v'ani yoshev meshamam ad mincha te'erev. So, a pasuk from Ezra. Actually, I think also he's fasting here because he's sad about finding all the intermarriage when he goes back, or when he finds out how many people from Eretz Israel actually intermarried in Galut. So he says, everyone gathered around me, all the people who were like concerned about God's words, right, everyone who's upset about what happened in the Golah, V'ani Yoshev Mishomam ad l'minchat erev. And I sat sort of stunned or, desolate until minchat ha'erev, until evening, basically. Uktiv of minchat ha'erev kamti mitaniti. And it says, like later on, it says the next verse, and in the evening I got up from my fast. So later on, he got up from his fast. Whoops. So the Rishonim discuss. It's not so clear like what this verse really proves, but it seems that certainly the intention is to say that it's the last quarter of the day that you really pray. Whatever, if you keep going in the Psukim, you see Ezra's actual prayer. So it seems like what he actually did in that last quarter of the day was pray. Okay, we'll stop here.